Hello, everyone. Welcome to the new normals.
Welcome,
Hi.
welcome.
So today we're going to talk about the new normals of KPIs in life.
KPIs, what it is, what the animal it is, some people might never heard about it, but those people are in the businesses, they know the key performance indicators. Those are the KPIs.
That's right. So, what are the main categories of key KPIs in life? Um, we have chosen three main categories: health, productivity, and happiness.
Right. And conventionally, people have lived with some of the KPIs, like a more granular KPIs in each of these categories. And certainly we will be looking one by one. And yeah, let's start with health, right?
Absolutely. So here we're mostly in the old normal world. Um, we think about physical health. We think about exercising more, eating better, sleeping better, which are all very crucial. Is there anything that we're missing here, Agnes?
I would think that maybe to distinguish between the, let's say, old normals of the health, which is really you step on the scale, you see numbers, then I don't know, you look into your eyes in the mirror after, I don't know, a heavy party, and then you kind of ask yourself, is this the face I want to go out to work the next morning? So it's more of a physically seeable, measurable components of our daily lives. So that would be the old normal. So people would be, okay,
Mm,
I can measure this, so that's why I should control it.
absolutely. And what we have found in, well, the scientific community have found in the literature is that, in fact, mental health determines a lot your physical health. If you think about, chronic illnesses, right? The past 20th century, the rise of chronic illnesses and how it's all, related to lifestyle. And of course, within lifestyle, we have a lot of physical health lifestyle. But more and more evidence have shown that your mental health, how happy you feel, how much stress and anxiety do you experience, these actually are even more critical than whether you go out and exercise or not. And in fact, if you are feeling terribly stressed and anxious, you don't get to keep up with your physical health habits. It actually determines the success of your physical health habits.
Exactly. And I think maybe the one way how we can look at this first group of KPIs altogether, the health. Currently, many people already have become aware. They really speak about mindfulness, awareness, mental health, and discussing less measurable things like stress and anxiety and trying at least to get rid of them. While in the
Mhm.
previous picture, that was the missing piece. So people were trying to control and manage the things that were easier to see, easier to monitor, easier to measure, and therefore it was a kind of a common behavior, like, oh, everybody is kind of doing the exercise to get the weight management under control. But then they realized after some time, even if you do that, for example, you get your weight to the point that you are happy, but no, you're
Mhm.
not really happy. You're just happy about the number that you see on the scale, but you are
Absolutely.
exhausted. You are exhausted and you are unbalanced and everything that comes with it. So now we are just saying, well, holistically to look at the health. Of course, many
Mhm.
people already do that, but reminder for those that are still having this response. You might speak to some person and say, well, but how about this mindfulness and meditation? They would say, oh, that's crap. I don't even want to speak about this. So people mentally are also kind of resisting to see the holistic perspective on their health,
Mhm.
which what we are encouraging right now with this seeing the KPIs of holistic health.
Right. And sometimes we equate something that is more invisible, intangible, as something that maybe is less scientific, which is, an old mental model of like what is not numerically present is it's just not there. Well, the fact that it's difficult to measure doesn't mean that it's not something real, right? If it's not visible, it doesn't mean it's not something real. And I think Einstein has this quote: "Not everything that is countable counts, and not everything that counts is countable." But I think we can actually augment it and say, not everything that counts is easily countable, but there are ways to make it more accountable, even imprecisely, even not like accurately, or even not numerically. Can we make it more visible, as you said? So, and of course, with technological advancement in wearables, now we can have these, pulse measurement that where you can immediately see, how, how is your heartbeat, and maybe even facial recognition and tracking sort of moods in the near future. And so there are a lot more measurable in the domain of the invisible factors that really matter for our well-being that might become a reality soon. So can we preemptively kind of think about those? And the sad truth is just without these factors that truly matter, even though they are less visible, even though we're not familiar with tracking them, we are going to suffer in well-being, right? So if we think about loneliness, quality of connections, how poorly we are doing there. Well, we never set it as a goal to say, hey, today my goal is just gonna go out there and I'm gonna, you know, um, try to get as much quality connections with everyone I encounter as possible. That's my number one goal. No, it's about how many meetings you have. Make sure that you go through your calendar and maybe all the deliverables that are kind of out there, urgent and tangible.
Right. And maybe before we move on to the next category of the KPIs, or at least the three main categories that we prescribe for today, I would say, what is the obvious accelerator or obvious catalyst for us to moving from the old-fashioned way, for the old norms, to the new
Mm-hmm.
norm? It's the
Mm-hmm.
technological advancements, right? So what
Oh,
actually
the
we need?
catalyst. Yes. Yes.
Yes, the catalyst is technological
Mm-hmm.
advancements, just like with everything, starting from
Mm-hmm.
electricity and going to the
True.
computers,
True.
is that if we look at what technology is used for measuring this old normal kind of KPIs. So it's a very basic scale, for
Mm-hmm.
example. It's a very mechanic. So you step on it. So now we have also electronic scale. So it's okay. And then it gives you some body mass index and something like that. But still, it's very basic. And the technology here plays a very important role. It closes up the feedback loop. So the feedback loop between you stepping on the weight on the scale and seeing the number is instant, right? And for stress anxiety, we just didn't have technology to instantly tell you the stress level or the anxiety
Right.
level. And we still don't
Yeah.
have very refined way to do it. So therefore, as technologies arrive, they will give us the opportunity to close this loop. And then we will remain with only one barrier, whether
True.
people will be accepting that in their lives.
Right. Yeah. So the science of measuring the invisible will experience some leap with the technological advancement, and then the culture and the norm and the individual mental models about what really matter need to also catch up with it. But the awareness of it will already go a long way. So the second theme that we're gonna tackle is the in the domain of productivity, which we kind of already touched upon. So now we're moving from home to office. And the old way of seeing it as productivity is equivalent to pay and prestige of job, and it's all about how productive you are perceived by your boss or by your colleagues at work. So there's something wrong with
Yes.
that.
Nothing is wrong with anything in particular. I think where the kind of we could see that something is wrong if we kind of step away, we zoom out and see a bigger picture. previously, people were predominantly looking at, again, at the measurable things, the salary, it's the numbers, you can compare them, you can see whether they grow or they shrink. And also the status, whether you have the title of the assistant or you are the manager or you are the director. And these are
Mm,
the kind of very obviously, again, measurable things. And therefore, people were predominantly looking at these and comparing themselves to others using this. But again, the same as with the first one, with the health, there is this another component which is not discussed, which was previously not that well measured, and it still is not measured in many organizational settings. So what's there?
yeah. Um, well, psychological fulfillment turns out to be something extremely important, and actually, data shows that giving people extra bonus, because except in the pandemic time where your the bonus or extra pay actually shows you how much you value your employees. Ultimately, it's about the psychological fulfillment, right? So it's not about the pay. People barely notice. In fact, there was no study about these different compensations, the actual money versus pizza versus compliment from the boss, and the compliment from the boss goes, the most um, far in terms of motivating the employees. So the psychological fulfillment really matters, and in terms of the ultimate, right, ultimate sort of benefits, again, it's very invisible. And the other is, if we look at leadership in um, companies, what they are looking at, managerial kind of KPIs. A lot of times they look at, no show versus show, and a lot of, again, more visible, measurable indicators. But it turns out, for example, trust, giving the people the sense that you trust them, predicts the most in productivity. And so some of these soft psychological indicators, if you can actually make a difference there, it immediately impacts, the productivity. However, again, it's less conventional.
Exactly. People were thinking in categories that were easy to measure, so and they were easy to compare, so their salary and so forth. And I think people what have realized, at least quite many have realized, that you can achieve the result that is expected from you or from the employee at the office or at the employer somewhere. But in the end, you kind of reach the goal, and that was agreed between you and your employer, and employer is happy because you delivered what you promised and you receive accordingly your salary or the bonuses according to your delivery. But in this equation is the question whether the employee is happy. And some employees are, some of the employees are not. And then this is the question. So you can achieve the same result, including the fulfillment. So actually you love the
Hmm.
job, you
Right.
see your growth, you see your expansion, and then as this inner balanced way of creation,
Hmm.
and that feels as the energy of productivity and not just like empties it out like the people.
Yeah. And there's this saying of going beyond and above. And it turns out that humans have a lot of goodwill, right? A lot of times we are willing to go out of our way to help other people, do volunteer job, to really, put extra efforts beyond the transactional, agreed amount. And what determines whether somebody goes above and beyond, it's the how much they feel fulfilled by this relationship, or beyond just transactional, how much they feel motivated intrinsically. And that comes from the psychological drive, right? It's not an economic contract. So in fact, economic contract would make you feel like you have to stick to the limited amount. And if we come from distrust, we'll say people's intrinsic drive is to do less than what they are contracted for. But in fact, that's just scientifically ungrounded, right? People really care about, how much they can contribute to the world, to other people, to community. And if anything, they will go above and beyond if you give them that trust. So that's something that it's just an old belief coming from a more fear, place, and lack of security. And I think a lot of new leadership leaders in today's time are starting to realize this and have got fascinating results. So there's a lot of social proof around that we can visibly witness. So that's going to be the new normal, probably more so. And now after the pandemic, after we see that working from home is not as disastrous as we see, and that if you give them trust, productivity will come.
Exactly. And I think maybe to conclude this second category of KPIs, I would say that it's the people would ask, okay, but you just talk about the stuff that I don't know how to implement in my life. And I think
Absolutely.
that
Yeah.
that there should be a coefficient of integration. So how integrated is your employment contract
Mhm.
with yourself, with your being, with your interest, with your self in the long term, whether you see yourself fulfilling, growing, expanding as part of this contractual relationship, or you are seeing this contractual relation bringing you only the one form of energy, which is a form of money, and the rest you don't feel any integration. So if that's the only integration, of course, then you just kind of give away all of your resources in terms of time and everything else for exchange of that. But if your integration coefficient is larger than just the one thing, two, three other things, and you see that it's very well integrated, and you could even continue with the same employer or with a different one, but you would be expanding your capacity, then your integration coefficient is higher, and this is how you feel more fulfilled. So that would be my conclusive before we move on.
That sounds great. So, our last topic is what is the old normal of what counts as a good life and what determines happiness? And I think we've talked about it in our last episode as well. Many people see money, power, how other people, you know, view you, how many likes you get on your social media. Oftentimes they think about those as happiness factors that really matter.
Yes, I think people, if they're asked, okay, what means happiness to you? And this is the time when we would really be able to measure it. So some people would say, oh, I'm happy if I have a title of chief executive something, and I have a car, and I have a, I don't know, a good salary, and then I have a lot of public recognition for my
Yeah.
great work. And it's all kind of packages into this old fashioned way. Okay, this is, and let's be very transparent here. That's okay because our nature asks for it. This is how we are hardwired as a social animals. We look for this acceptance of the group, the appreciation from the other people in the group, and so forth. But again, what we are discussing today, the KPIs that are missing in the picture. So there's nothing wrong if you do a great job and you're a
To keep
leader
them.
and you,
Yes, absolutely.
yes, that's included. But if you exclude the rest, then you're kind of not having the holistic life, and therefore this for happiness and good life, of course, all of the fundamental values that have been with us and we are getting one way or the other in our personal lives into the relationships, those are also important into this formula of happiness. So again,
Yeah.
if you ask people what the happiness means to you, some people list a shorter list and some longer list.
Right. And Agnes, I do think it's important to sort of pause here and say, well, what are money and career success and other people's approval ultimately for? You can say those are things that I am striving for. They just are meaning of life itself. But I do think that there is argument to say let's also be aware that a lot of times these are more the means to the end and not the end, right? So if you think about, hey, let me have a hammer that is really kind of effective hammer, and yes, you are gonna be able to, you know, hammer more nails when the hammer is effective. But when you realize that that's the technology, that you need to sharpen, and then you end up being drowned in the sharpening, and you forgot to hammer the nails in the end. It's like you earn a lot of money and they can give you more possibilities to enjoy life or to experience different, have more access to kind of different kinds of experiences, that some cost more money than others, that you don't have that constraint. But you're so busy creating the best hammer in the world that you don't end up hammering any nails at all. But until you're like laying on your deathbed and you're like, oh, I have the hammer that can hammer 1,000 nails, but I haven't ended up hammering more than 10 because I was too busy making the best hammer in the world. Right. So that in a way, I think a lot of people now, we get better job, we earn more money, we get better apartment, bigger apartment, and we just ended up having less time to do any of the real life, ultimate sort of enjoyment of life, to kind of spend time with our loved ones and all of these quality connections that we know now from data, that really, really is the key component to perception of a good life.
Exactly. And even to continue with your example about the hammer, so it could be that a person is currently hammering nails, a great
Mm,
hammer, like doing very
mm,
efficient nailing, but the fulfillment, like real inner calling, is about making photography, for example.
mm,
And that means you cannot expect that the hammer will transform by itself into the photo camera. So it's either you do hammering or you do look at the nature and get the photo camera and start seeing the scenes and trying to take photos. So that's, I think, just a kind of a very basic illustration of how people live. And then the people go to work and they are appreciated and they get salaries as well. And again, let's not be too much kind of jumping on the status and salary as being bad. No, it's all good as long as it's
yeah. No,
interconnected.
it's not bad. It's not bad. You do want to have an effective hammer, right? It's just
Yes,
more like a kind of, how do we make sure that what's not salient and visible, that that we give them some weight instead of completely kind of disappearing in the background just because they're more intangible and invisible. So in fact, I don't know, Agnes, if you have any way of reminding yourself about some of these more invisible indicators. I try to create in my choice environment um, these indicators that would at least just remind me um, how how I'm doing. So I have a little pot that has love, trust, gratitude, just kind of visibly on in my kitchen wall. And every day when I feel really, really good, I would put a few sort of happiness token in them, just to give myself some kind of immediate gratification that I'm making progress there, because there doesn't exist like a bank account for love and trust and gratitude, right? But whenever I see money, income, or more savings, of course I get excited. It's so visible. But whenever I have a good quality connection with a colleague or others, I feel happy. But at the end of the day, I don't let that be, what motivates me to kind of do more of it. Like sometimes I'm too busy to even savor, the success in these factors. How do you do it? How do you give yourself more visibility for the invisibles?
I think technique is quite simple. We are equipped. Our super machine, the body, is equipped with
Mm-hmm.
a signaling tonalities, whatever, like a signal types. And whenever we feel that the body signals us, oh, this is a very tiring thing that you're doing right now, and we consciously even capture it at that moment. I don't want to respond to this email. That's when the body
Mm-hmm.
says it's a tiring thing, which means it's not in line with what would be
Mm-hmm.
fulfilling you. Those
Mm-hmm.
are the moments, and these moments come to us. It's fine. Sometimes it is a hard, like a heavy lifting for your brain. But then if that intense work that is ahead of you is still within the direction that you want to self evolve, you still feel a rush of energy sooner or later coming to fulfill that, because it's like a preview. I want to get there. I want to see that landscape. I want to travel there. And it comes to you sooner or later, whatever challenges. And I just gave an example from traveling, but sooner or later, you will figure out how to get there, where to money get from, and how to really handle that specific place and take the pictures of that ocean, for example. It's gonna drive you from within. And the
Mm-hmm.
way the technique is, everyone has these moments of feeling, oh, this is so tiring, and whatever other spectrum of the tiredness or anxiety, or I don't like it, those are the signals. When you capture those, be honest, ask yourself, why do you feel this feeling? Why do you feel like this is tiring? And then you
Mm-hmm.
realize it's not in the same direction as you want to move. And then you start to filter sooner or later out the things that are not in the direction you want to go. And maybe it can, after some time, be that you need to change something with your employment, or something with your hobbies, or something with your friends, something with your other things you do. So that's my technique.
Mm. Yeah, so basically, um, really allowing them to emerge by a deeper connection with your emotional intelligence, with how you feel, instead of blocking these signals from the body. Um,
Yep.
that's
Or
that's
ignoring.
wonderful. Yeah. The other
Ignoring is the other way.
the other way that I want to add here is games and gamification. How that could be also engaging our attention in sometimes in the right way. And at home we play this gratitude game where we really write gratitude in a little post-it notes, and we talk about it in the dinner time, and we have these pots of gratitude notes, laying around in the household to make it to make it kind of a both a fun theme, as well as making some of these communication or expression of love, trust, and gratitude much more salient. Because sometimes what I realize is a lot of things that I'm grateful for, I took it for granted that my partner know them already, and then I saw his like very surprised kind of look of both, a happy surprise that I actually feel grateful that he underestimated my gratitude towards him. I underestimate his gratitude towards me, and also because that we're rewarding, giving gratitude, it becomes reinforced. And next time when we feel grateful, when we do something, we already anticipate the gratitude from the other person. And so that makes it just psychologically easier to go into the invisible. Well,
Wonderful.
it's I love this topic, and I know Agnes, you are someone that I admire a lot in terms of living really a connected life with yourself, with your loved ones, and maybe we take it for granted for some of us who can afford a lot of time to reflect on this topic, partly because of our work, that we are maybe naturally enjoying life in the invisible factors more so than people who are not doing work in this domain. And I think we were just grateful to this opportunity to share a little bit about uh, this really key topic with everyone. And we're seeing, like, after the pandemic or during the pandemic, we're getting more and more sharing actually on this topic in social media and scientific communities. And um, we really hope that if you have any good suggestions, since it's such a brand new territory, we need a lot of co-creation and sharing of discovery. So if you discover anything that you would like to share with us, please do email us.
All right. Sounds great. And I think we have given the whole spectrum of people to think about what KPIs have been missing in their lives and where can they really fulfill their life with a new kind of KPIs. Definitely very important work. And yeah, we'll continue next time.
Fantastic.
All
Bye for
right.
now.
All right. Take care.